Hi everyone, welcome to our second lecture of General Botany class. Today we'll learn about metabolism and enzymes. First of all, what is the differences between living organism and non-living things? You can place a pause and come back when you have an answer. So in general, in this picture, living organism can breathe probably, can eat, can breathe, can grow bigger in size by themselves and can reproduce, right? But the non-living things, they cannot do all that. They cannot move, they cannot eat, they cannot breathe, they cannot make a copy of themselves. For the more serious answer, living organism has a higher degree of complexity and organization. Living organism can eat, can we can say it can extract and transform and use energy from the environment, usually in the form of chemical nutrients like food that we eat or the light from the sun. And those organisms use those energy to build and maintain their sophisticated structure. They can use those energy to do mechanical, chemical works. But the non-living organism, they cannot do anything like that. Over time, they tend to degrade to the more disordered state. For example, if you have a piece of paper, like a bill, over time you can see that at the edge it will become brown, brittle, and then loosen up into so small pieces, into the state that we call it disorder, because at the beginning in a brand new piece of paper, you can see that everything are in just one piece, but later when it's becoming degrading, the edges will become brittle and break into small pieces. And once we have more than one pieces, that means they are not organized anymore. They are in disordered state. You cannot gather them in just one touch like this, and they will become equilibrium with its surrounding. Like when it becomes dust, it will scatter around all in the room, like with the air. And finally, living organism can do replication, like animals. They can make hits. They for the plant, they can make fruit, and the fruit has a seed inside. And those seed, once it get good environment, they can germinate and grow into a new plants, for example. And all those activities actually because living organism has metabolism, and metabolism is a cellular activity combining many pathways together. We will get into the pathway to do 4 tasks. The first one is to obtain energy from the surrounding. The second one is to use that energy to build a precursor of the bigger molecules. And the third one is to polymerizing. That means combining the precursor into the macromolecules like proteins, nucleic acid, and polysaccharide. And the fourth one is to use those macromolecules to build a bigger structure like a membrane, like a big unit of protein to do like photosynthesis, for example. We'll get into the photosynthesis in the probably next 2 lecture if I remember correctly. Then I like you guys to take a look at this left picture. It's just explain what I have said already. So living organism starting to get energy from their either food or light, and those get into the metabolism by digesting those energy, and you get a smaller monomer, and then you use that energy from the food to build a bigger molecules, and to use those molecules to polymerizing and making higher order stuff like membrane, for example, complex molecules, and then do cellular work. What is chemical reaction, by the way? Chemical reaction is just a process to transform one type of chemical to another. Example of this chemical reaction, let's take a look like this one, is the process of making carbon-3 compound called malonyl-CoA from 2 carbon compound and 1 carbon compound. The 2 carbon compound is acetyl-CoA and 1 carbon compound is carbon dioxide. 2 plus 1 is equal to 3, right? But it's not as simple as that, because the chemical reaction, they sometimes need some kick, and this kick is actually an ATP, which is a cellular energy. I will get into that detail a few more slides later. Just now, carbon 2 compound plus carbon 1 compound with some energy, and then you get 3 carbon compound malonyl-CoA. And this one will be a precursor to make fatty acid. And the byproduct of ATP is ADP plus 1 phosphate. This is just one chemical reaction. Let's take a look. If you have many chemical reactions connected to each other consecutively, we will call that pathway. And this chemical reaction to make malonyl-CoA is actually right here. Acetyl-CoA plus carbon dioxide plus ATP, and then you get malonyl-CoA. And if you connect this reaction with other reaction, you get the whole pathway. And this pathway is the fatty acid synthesis pathway, starting from, you can skip pyruvate probably, but you can start right here. Carbon 2 compound and carbon 3 compound plus 2 carbon compound, and then you will get 4 carbon, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16 carbon compound. And these are fatty acid. From here, just one pathway, right? If you put many pathways together, they will become metabolism. For example, we talk about fatty acid synthesis pathway, actually like a spiral shaped arrows right here. And if you put this pathway together with other pathway, you get metabolism. And in general, metabolism is just not making bigger molecules. It can be breaking down the bigger molecules to smaller molecules. In this picture, I'm showing you a metabolism of oil or fat in your belly. Starting from fatty acid synthesis, you get fatty acid, and this fatty acid is exported into ER, and then it get incorporated into fat, oil, in special organelles called lipid droplet. And then once you have stored a lot of lipid right here, this lipid can be broken down once your cell or your body need to use energy. It will break down this oil and you get free fatty acid again. And this free fatty acid will undergo further broken down into 2 carbon compound acetyl-CoA. And from this pathway, you get a lot of energy by broken down. And you get those energy from mitochondria probably. So this is just an example. I don't want you guys to know all the details in this. Just know that metabolism is just a combination of many pathways. And if you put just one metabolism with other metabolisms, you will get so confusing picture right here, like a circuit of electrical board. Here you have lipid metabolism that we have just talked about. You have sugar metabolism, carbohydrate, amino acid, nucleic acid, and so on. This is just an example from yeast, which is a very simple organism. If you compare this to a plant or human, it could be many times more complicated than the yeast one. All right, let's go down to a more simple idea. So we talk about metabolism again. Metabolism is just a sum of all chemical reaction. It's a balance between building up or anabolism in a more fancy word. And that would need to be balanced with breaking down. We call it catabolism. What I mean by that, let's take a look at this diagram. Catabolism is degradation, anabolism is synthesis. If you begin with bigger molecules from the left and from the right, you have proteins, DNA and RNA as your genetics material. You have carbohydrate, you have lipids. Same thing on the right. So let's start from the right. That would be better. For example, if you eat food, if you eat a piece of chicken breast, you have proteins, you have DNA a lot, not so much of carbohydrate, not so much of lipid. But your stomach will digest this chicken breast into amino acid, nucleic acid, sugar, and fatty acid and glycerol for the lipid. By breaking down this chicken breast, you get a lot of energy. And your body will use this precursor, smaller unit of many things, and reshuffle those things again to build your muscle, to create energy for you. They'll need some input energy. That energy could come from breaking down of the food and build your own necessary compounds, protein, DNA, RNA, carbohydrate, and lipids. All right, this is an idea what is metabolism. And so I'd like to draw your guys' attention to how organisms involved with those kind of energy. We can say that energy is a capacity to do work, and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. What I mean by that, energy can only be transformed. So we have energy before, and we have different kind of energy like after. And living organism cannot create, cannot destroy those energy, but they can use that energy and change it to different form of energy. For example, plants can utilize the energy from the sun and use that energy to assimilate carbon and make sugar. For that, sugar is a chemical energy, and light is a different form of energy, it's the light energy. So plants can transform the light energy into the chemical energy. Like in this diagram, you have nutrition or sunlight as the starting the energy before, and those energy can be transformed into several type of energy. It can be a chemical energy, it can be used for cellular works, it can be dissipated as heat, it can use in metabolism or producing macromolecules. So now we learn that organism can transform energy. We know about metabolism, we know about chemical reaction and pathway, metabolism and metabolic network. Now we need to know about ATP, which is the biochemical energy. Let's say if you go to a market, you need money, and ATP is just like your banknote or like your coil. Let's say if I have some right here. Now I don't have any money anyhow. So ATP is like your money for you. If you buy stuff, you need to pay. Your money will go out from your pocket. But if you sell stuff, you can earn money. You get the money, right? Similar to chemical reaction, similar to catabolic reaction. Catabolic reaction is a breaking down stuff. You get ATP as an energy, and building up bigger molecules, you need energy in the form of ATP. And what is ATP in the chemical sense? ATP is composing of three main chemicals. The first one is the base adenine, like this one. Second one is sugar ribose, and the third one is three phosphate molecules. This all together we call adenosine triphosphate. You may have heard about adenosine triphosphate or ATP from genetics class or from principal biology class. It is actually served as a nucleotide like ATP, TTP, CTP, and GTP. And all the four bases will combine into DNA. But if you have just ATP floating around, it will work as the biochemical energy. It will be used in a lot of chemical reaction in the living organism. Why it has so much of the energy? By breaking the last phosphate molecules group off, this bond store a lot of energy. Breaking this, you get a lot of energy, and the byproduct of this is ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and inorganic phosphates as the product. So let's take a look at when the reaction will occur. Maybe I think I will start this all over again in the next video. Yeah, let's do that. See you in the next video.